My first step is to pick a gemstone. I draw a lot of my inspirations from gemstones, and I have a vault full of gemstones, so I can go in and kind of select and see what kind of speaks to me that day. I collect these exotic, rare, just are never found again. So the first thing you do is you carve the wax. To me, that's the real journey of creating the piece of jewelry. That's the thing that is the art form, because it ultimately is the sculpture. So once you get your wax piece off, what I do is I actually use a drill press, plane it out and get everything perfectly even and parallel. We do the lost wax casting technique. That wax actually turns into the ring. We know we're working with this sapphire. Finding the center. So that requires just a little bit of, I kind of do things by eye. So I'm actually creating a channel here. So again, what I'm doing right now is just plotting out the piece, kind of creating what I want the piece to look like. This is going to be our V-prongs that actually hold the stone in. Make sure that my center is centered. You carve into exactly what you want the ring to look like. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to place our baguettes. Okay, and that's the basic layout of what's going to happen. But now I need to find this center width right here, because this is going to be our thinnest point of the ring. So I can use my divider to do that. Run the lines parallel here and here. And we're going to confirm that that's the basic width of the back of our ring. Ink is right about there. This is my favorite part of making jewelry, is the actual waxing, because honestly, I never know exactly what's going to happen. If you see, I actually marked this here, but as I'm waxing this, I'm kind of deciding I don't want it to do that. I actually want it to be a steeper angle and come to a single point. So even though I waxed it, and I laid it out like that, I'm actually going to change it, which is, like I said, part of making the wax. And change that angle to a much steeper angle. Kind of cathedral feeling, very, because it's such a dramatic sapphire that I wanted to change that a little bit. So that's going to become my line. And that's really why I think the waxing process is so important, because things are constantly changing and evolving in the process. So now I'm creating the head for my sapphire. I can go ahead and start actually carving into it. And starting to create that V-prong feeling I'm looking for. First I want to take this out through the center. We're going to take this and I get to pick the angle. Oh, wow. Of what I want the baguettes to be. So the first thing you do is you carve the wax. To me, that's the real journey of creating the piece of jewelry. That's the thing that is the art form, because it ultimately is the sculpture. And you can see it's starting to take shape. Center stone's going to go here. Baguettes will be coming off the sides. I want to tuck them under. All right, so the next step is we have to convert this wax into gold, and that requires a casting process. So the first part is we have to attach a sprue to the piece. So the cleaner the flow, the cleaner the path into the ring, the better the fill and the more dense the casting. Whenever you have any liquid, funnel to a small area and then open to a large area, you actually get a spraying effect. So we're trying to minimize that by creating a really nice molten gold flow.
Here's the sprue base. Basically, this is going to be the platform. After this piece, I go ahead and I'll spray it with a debubbleizer. This is basically an alcohol base, wax clean. All right, this is a perforated flask for a vacuum. And then this will have a sleeve that goes over this, because what you'll do is you'll pour an investment into this. So there you go. Leave it in there, scoop it out. It's kind of hard to do that. Now the investment goes in here. You don't want to pour it directly on top of the wax. You want to pour it off to the side so it fills from underneath. Okay. Goes back into the investment. Pull off of there. Now we'll just let this sit. Wait about 2 hours before we actually put it in the oven. Now we're going to pull the sleeve off. Now you can see that the investment's solid all the way through. Now that was that button that I put in there.
We start with always 24 karat pure gold, because we're going to use about half an ounce, which is a half a coin of pure gold. So there's our 24 karat. We're going to add our alloy till we get to our desired weight of 15.6 pennyweights. We're going to turn this 24 karat and this silver and nickel alloy into white gold by heating them and mixing them together.
So, comes in here, take a look at it, inspect it. Let's get ready. Wash that way. Scrape off here a little bit.
So all we're doing right now is cutting the sprue off. What separates our jewelry is that we do everything from start to finish. For us, we're making one thing, and if it costs $100 more, we think our clients appreciate that $100. Our goals are to make the piece as perfect as the piece can possibly be. What's the difference between an original painting and a poster? You know, they're both beautiful on your wall, but there's an entire process to that painting. And there's an entire history and there's an entire legacy that happens with that painting that really can't be there with that poster. Setting is a very, very difficult skill. There's many different setting techniques. We are not typically doing a lot of prong setting, which is the simplest and most efficient and fastest setting technique. 99% of the jewelry you see all over the world is prong set. And that's because it's very easy to bend 4 little gold prongs, which is a soft metal, over a gemstone. It doesn't put the gemstone at risk. Almost, I don't want to say almost anyone, but you can teach someone how to prong set in a matter of weeks. The setting techniques we use, which are pave, channel, bezel, those things, rather than taking 3 or 4 minutes to set each stone, can take 3 or 4 hours per stone. So it's a much more difficult, much more labor-intensive process, but it looks completely different. And it creates a piece of jewelry that's completely different than a typical manufactured piece of jewelry. So the labor that goes into it really kind of starts now, and we're essentially manipulating metal. We're moving metal over gemstones. And so it's a process that requires some strength, certainly a lot of precision, because you have to pre-cut all your seats perfectly to what that gemstone is. And then many times you have to take a carbide steel graver and you're pushing down on one area of the gold, and if you push with enough force, it'll actually create the other area of the gold to lift next to it. And then you slowly bend that over, and that's how you pave. If it's channel set, we actually we get the stones to spit just into that channel, and then we actually have to take a hammer punch and start punching the metal with a steel punch until that metal starts to roll and move. These are all very labor intensive, but they create that handmade sculpted piece of jewelry where the gemstones are not simply something that's stuck on top of the piece of jewelry, they're integrated into the piece of jewelry. And that really gives the jewelry that designer handmade finish that we're shooting for.